Well, good morning, and Mirador Television out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewis. We're still having some slight connectivity problems, and I hope that your picture isn't too bad. We're doing our best to resolve it. I'm doing my best, and I'm no expert in these things. And luckily, we will have at least tomorrow we will have somebody along who knows what they are doing, and we can improve the whole situation. So my apologies, but yesterday wasn't too bad, and let's hope that today follows suit and that we can get a decent picture to you. It is the 10th of May in the year 2022. We continue on with trauma and drama everywhere in the world. And the unfortunate thing is that some of it is really very dramatic stuff, particularly that emanating from the Ukraine. But equally as dramatic is that which emanates from Westminster, which seems to be never ending, and which embroils the players in one scandal after another, all of which I think should be put aside. But in speaking to a colleague yesterday, Suzanne Musho from New York, she took the opposite view, that in fact what we really do need is to excuse me when I just plug something in, and at least we can guarantee we'll get that. That ethics in politics really is, in leadership, is required, and that the leaders who have transgressed, no matter how small, should be brought to book. And since she's somebody that I very much respect and her views, then I re-looked at my own viewpoint, and perhaps I'm beginning to change just a little bit. The sensitivity of some of these things is just beyond description. You only have to sneeze, and the bloody thing goes all over the place. So forgive me if I play around a little, just to try and get us back on track. And it's absolute bloody nonsense. Still, you got used to this sort of television where we are not always as we should be, and we need sometimes to play around with these things to get what we're looking for, and I'm afraid that what we're looking for right now just isn't becoming. We had it a moment ago, but now we don't have it, and it's disappeared, and God only knows where it's gone to. There we go. We have now got it back. Yes, after a lot of fiddle faddle. But there we go. It's a good start to the morning, because if we're in a fiddle faddle, the whole country is in a fiddle faddle, and the world is in a fiddle faddle, and everything seems to be completely in a mess. So, welcome to Mirador Television in Lewis, East Sussex. And without further ado, I think what we'll do is we'll make sure that that we get to the headlines, because they keep on disappearing, and we mustn't have things disappear on us. Dearie me, no, absolutely not. So we'll. It's got. Have you ever seen such nonsense in all your life? Because I think there's a little button that I can stop, but I have no idea where the button is. I am totally and utterly illiterate when it comes to these new things, phones and computers and so on and so forth. At one time I thought I was keeping up But then, you get to the point where you think, oh, to hell with it. I'm really not that fussed. The trouble is that they go on at such a hell of a pace, they leave you behind, and then suddenly the bright boys down in the basement who keep on making things bigger and better, make it bigger and better, so that in fact you can't use it because you don't understand what the hell they've done. So that's the newspaper headlines is that there are two key things which the BBC has identified this morning. One is Starmer's gamble. He's gambling on threatening to resign if he gets a ticket. And the Queen handing over the reins. That at long last, perhaps what we're doing is we are seeing a Charles regency. We haven't had a regent for, we've already had one monarch since 1952. So there hasn't been much opportunity for that sort of thing at all. But we are going to experience possibly having a Prince Regent. And in Lewis, that was particularly key because the Prince Regent spent a lot of time down here. He brought his various mistresses here to the Star Hotel, which is now the Town Hall, to the Crown Hotel, which is now a block of flats, and to here, where we're sitting and broadcasting from, the White Hart, which is still a flagship hotel, a hotel where Tom Paine formulated his rights of man theories before going off and starting the American Revolution, and a hotel which is rich and deep in history. I'm not going to go through the whole history, but you can see in looking at behind me that there are beams and pillars and so on, all of which are original and all of which have seen many different famous faces, experienced famous instances, points in history, and so on. Let's without further ado go to the Guardian. Starmer's gamble: the leader pledges to quit if he's fined over Beergate. Now, what he said is this: if the Durham police, which is where apparently he had his illegal pint during lockdown, fine me, then I shall quit. Right? So that would throw the opposition into complete and utter chaos, because I don't think that they'd anticipated a leadership crisis at all. Not only that, but his second in command says she'll quit as well. You can't hand over power there. Although I've heard that before. He goes, I go. Oh, hang on. if he goes, who's there left? Me. Right, I take the reins of power. Seen all that before as well. The Guardian leads with Starmer's pledge that he is just going to hand over the reins of leadership of the Labour Party if he gets fined by the police. Now, the reaction to that has been varied. Some people have said, oh, now this is what ethics is all about. This is how a statesman should behave, and so on and so forth. And I'm afraid that some of the others have said quite the opposite. And that is he's holding the police to ransom. Is if they actually hand him a ticket, then they are going to leave the opposition leaderless. Huh, right, okay. The Times, Starmer: I will quit if the police fine me for the beer. Now, the whole issue is that he had a beer during lockdown, and it was at a party, a constituency party in the north, where I think a bit of curry was handed around and a pint to put it down. And Starmer took the pint, and he is now being accused of actually breaking the law, as indeed Boris did with his famous Christmas icing cake. So now he's been caught, well and truly caught, having given Boris a bad time. He's saying, well, if they're going to slap that on me, I've got nothing to, I must resign, or absolute rubbish. I mean, if that is what he sees as leadership, then good riddance. And there are 2 years left for Labour to get their act together and find a leader who isn't going to be snivelling at the moment that he gets himself into a bit of a knot. Is Boris, whatever you think of Boris, is he actually rode the thing out, and he made sure that he stayed leader, come what may. And if you whether you think that that's arrogance or not, at least it's self-belief, and that's what a leader needs. He needs self-belief, no matter what scorn and opprobrium is heaped on him. That he will stand by his principles. Right, the eye goes along the same story. Starmer will quit if the police fine him. Well, you know, it's all the way through that he is threatening that if he gets a ticket, what will it be, a 50 quid ticket, that he's going to quit. To which I say, good riddance. If you're the sort of man that quits at something like this, then God only knows what might happen if you have to come up against Putin. If you're our leader in what looks as if it's going to be a long war of attrition in Ukraine, and which is going to spread, and it's going to spread to us. So I think we're looking for a bit more backbone than sniveling over a fine. And okay, he was a naughty boy. So is Boris. So are a lot of people. I bet you if actually the truth be told, you could barely go into a family home and say, did you observe all the rules during lockdown? And the answer is probably not all of them. So all you are is representative of what happened in the country. Get used to it. That's what your job is. Starmer challenges Johnson on integrity, says the Financial Times, as it reports that stakes are rising over Beergate. The paper notes that Sir Keir declined to say whether he would quit if police actually hand out the ticket. But you know, I don't know. It is the fact of the matter is it's a defining moment because he has risen to the top in politics. And could easily be prime minister. He can get to the very top if the next election proves to see the Tories out on their ear. And if that's where he stands, then he better think twice about quitting because he won't have the same opportunity again. No, indeed, he will not. Now, the Daily Mail. The Mail has stated this. Starmer accused of piling pressure on the police, but it also has on its front page that the Queen will not give the speech, the Queen's speech from the House of Lords today. She is not quite up to it physically, and Charles and William are going to stand in for her in that. And it's rather a colourful and momentous occasion for those people who aren't familiar with Westminster. Is basically what happens is the Queen reads out the government's programme for the next session of Parliament. And she says, my government will this, and my government will that, and my government will be the other. And she does it from the House of Lords, because historically, after Charles II, I think it was, invaded the House of Commons, royalty is banned. It's the one place in the whole of the United Kingdom that they cannot go. They cannot go into the House of Commons. And so an official called Black Rod goes and bangs on the door with his rod, which is centuries old, and the scars are centuries old, and then invites the House of Commons to come into the House of Lords to hear the Queen's speech. and they all file in, led by the leader of the opposition and the leader of the government, both of whom are naughty boys at the moment. They're being led in by the it's like prefects taking the sixth formers, naughty sixth formers. Anyway, they lead all the House of Commons in, and they all jam into the House of Lords. Those who haven't been into to Westminster is we do not have a big sprawling chamber on either the Lords or the Commons. It is a small, packed debating cockpit, if you like. And as a consequence, when all these people jam in, it is packed. But then they hear the Queen's speech, then they go back into their own debating chamber, the House of Commons, and they then debate what the Queen has said. Only in this case, it's going to be Charles and William. That's the ceremony, and it is a rather moving ceremony. And it's designed also to show that the animosity of debate, the cut and thrust in the debating chamber of the House of Commons, isn't really meant, or at least it is meant, but it's meant within the context of government and governance, and that in fact the opposition leaders don't bludgeon one another to death, don't actually physically attack one another, actually quite often have a drink together. The Mirror. This is what honour looks like, Mr. Johnson. Well, the Mirror has decided that Keir Starmer is doing absolutely the right thing. I will quit if I get a fine. It's that paper is as daft as the Labour lot. I mean, how are the mighty fallen? The Mirror at one time was a remarkable paper that was held in huge esteem. And nowadays, it doesn't know where it is or what it is. It doesn't know who to support, what not to support. But in this particular case, this is what honour looks like, Mr. Johnson. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Let's all be upright and sane. It is difficult. And the Metro, handing over the reins. The Metro, by the way, for those people who don't know, is the London paper. Handing over the reins, and it actually leads with the Queen beginning to slowly hand over power to Charles and to, or authority, if not power, to Charles and to Wills. Both as prospective monarchs. And she's had a very, very good run for her money. She's been the monarch since 1952. And we're celebrating her 70th year at the reigns, and they have been 70 remarkable years. The Queen has really not been swept up in that much controversy. She has handled herself with dignity. Yes, she got her fingers burned with misreading the public mood about Diana, and there have been one or two other little constitutional crises along the way. But generally speaking, she has been a very worthy head of state. And that's what we want. With all these people who are anti-royalty and so on and so forth, forget it. It's what sort of system do we want for produce our head of state? And what we have is a constitutional monarchy, perhaps the finest form of government, if it's put together carefully, that you can get. And ours has come after years and years and years of precedent and law and decrees. We don't have a written constitution in this country, or at least it's only partly written. Unlike the United States, where there are, I think, just seven articles, briefly written, each in one sentence almost, is we, on the other hand, have a mishmash of precedent, decrees, laws, and a partially written constitution, I suppose, going back to Magna Carta. Which paper is that? That's the Metro. Yes, get a fine and we will resign. Ho 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 ho. Well, you all know how I feel about that. the Queen to miss the state opening of Parliament is the Daily Telegraph's headline. And that she really is just a little bit too frail and a bit not well, not totally 100% well. And I have a gentleman, an elderly gentleman who is rather a nice chap, and we meet at the bus stop every morning when I come into the studio, and we have a chat. And he said, the thing is that she has gone downhill since Philip died. And this is sometimes the case, that somebody is terribly, terribly strong, mentally and physically and emotionally, while the partner is there. And there is no question that whatever may be said about the relationships within the royal family is that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh had a remarkably good one as far as governance is concerned. They were a staunch couple, and they made sure that a constitutional monarchy worked. And the Queen now has an opportunity, if you like, to take her foot off the pedal, and that she is able to perhaps relax a little bit and leave some of the driving to her son and her grandson, Charles and William. And in many ways, I suppose it's not a bad thing if Charles became Prince Regent, because it would give us all an opportunity to see how he would behave as head of state. And because he's got quite a few years left, I'm quite sure. I mean, how old is he now? 60 odd? I've lost track of that as well. But he would have probably a good 15 or 20 years at the helm, as long as he doesn't fall foul of something like COVID or whatever. So a trial run. Now, I started to say that the last Prince Regent we had was Prince George, was it? Who became George IV. Yes, it was George. And he spent a lot of time in Lewes. And one of the most famous things that he did was that in Lewes, there is what some would claim to be the steepest street in the whole of the United Kingdom. Of course, many people rush to claim those sort of things, and they can accept that a lot of people will claim that this one is steeper than that one and so on. But this one is very, very steep, and it's cobbled. And the Prince Regent spent his time here mainly because he was a great racegoer, and Lewes had a significant, rather, in fact, a leading race course at the time. And so he would come down here and stay here. And that's where, in fact, he started the pavilion, because he liked to spend his time down here. And on one occasion, his cronies, who were all betting men, one of them bet him that he couldn't drive a coach and four down this very steep, cobbled road without crashing it. And he took up the bet and drove the coach and four down this road. And if, in fact, he'd crashed and broken his neck, then the history of Britain would have been very different. As it was, he went on to become George the Fourth, and his father went mad. It was madness of King George it was his predecessor, but he became Prince Regent because the actual monarch was sometimes incapable of rational thought, therefore couldn't be counted on to take his part in the constitutional monarchy part of things, governance of this land. For those who want to know, it's 8:58, and we can expect that it's going to be it's going to be an okay day outside. It's going to be 1 degree warmer than yesterday. Again, it's going to go up to 17. There's a slight chance of rain. It's be scattered cloud and a slight breeze. So all in all, not unpleasant at all. And that is what you can expect outside. The slight chance of rain comes later in the afternoon. But even then, it is only a slight chance. So I think that you can, particularly if you're going out just for the morning, sally forth with without a raincoat or without a jacket, and enjoy the fact that with a slight breeze, that it should be a very pleasant day. Anyway, George, the Prince Regent, drove his coach and four down Keir Street, this very steep street in Lewes, and won the bet. And history wasn't changed. He became king. It's funny. He married as a prince without his father's consent, and that was annulled. In fact, he did it twice because in those days, anybody who got married into the royal family, particularly if they were likely to become queen, had to be approved. And he secretly married in Italy, I think it was. And when Dad found out, he hit the roof and annulled the marriage. So the Prince Regent was a naughty boy from the start, and he played the field, and all sorts of people came down here with him, not least of which was one Mrs. Fitzherbert, who it was said he married secretly, and in fact she was in theory the queen. But he also married, or he was forced into marriage or an arranged marriage with Queen Caroline, who eventually was kept out of his coronation. She was cheered when she became Queen Consort or Princess Consort or whatever she was known as. But her reputation, she was a German princess, her reputation went downhill to the point where they refused to give her a seat at his coronation eventually. Anyway, that's some of the background to a Prince Regent, as it were. The Sun, which has tried very hard to stay away from the controversy, but it doesn't mind saying the Crown. The Queen misses a speech for the first time in 59 years. She did miss one once before, and I can't remember whether it was illness or whatever. But this is the first time in 59 years that she hasn't gone to the House of Lords to deliver the Queen's speech, which is the government's legislative programme for the session. The Daily Express, which is always, in modern times, supportive of the government, says the Prime Minister, "I'll strive night and day to level up Britain." This is his famous levelling up, where we want to get rid of the elite, that we want North and South to have the same opportunities. And wherever you are, you can get a variety of things in terms of your treatment by society. And he is going to he's going to work very hard, night and day, he says, to level up Britain. And I suppose that that's a positive sort of thing. And the Daily Express is supporting, as usual, the government, and that's it. And then finally, here we come with my Daily Star. And what has it got on this morning? Because the world's not got enough problems right now, in a galaxy not so far away, NASA boffins will find ET in just a few years. The Daily Star claims that a former NASA chief says that humans will encounter alien life in just a handful of years. But the paper does not appear to welcome the prospect, because the world's not got enough problems now, it says, as if the world hasn't got enough problems now. All we need is to find out that we've got new neighbours who may or may not be sympathetic to us. So do we need that? Probably not. That's where we stand on the newspaper front pages, and more or less what's happening in our land in the UK right now. And let's just take a breather, shall we? Yes, I think we should. What we need to do is that my favorite little break here. Okay, shall I tell you what's coming up in affairs from the heart? That is the matters that we like to talk about from the White Hart, where we're broadcasting from in Lewis. And we will have joining us Jane Watkins from Hastings and Melissa Conti from New York. Yesterday we had Suzanne Musho, quite delightful, and who gave us a rundown of how things were viewed in the Americas. And we, in many ways, we tried very hard to suggest the distaff side. We often think of Americans being rather sort of crude and rude, and in fact they are a very civilized nation in many respects, and Suzanne showed that, and so will Melissa. So that is after 9:30. What we do is we take this program through to 9:30, and we take a short break so that we can distribute the programs across our network, and then we come back at about 20 to 10, and we start again for another hour and a half to chat about a whole host of other things, some things that you would know about and other things that you wouldn't. So we have a mixed bag, and we actually have our door wide open. Anybody who drops by, and indeed 2 people did yesterday, they just came in and we said, "Hi, how are you?" And one gentleman from Utah sat down and spent quite a bit of time with us. So if you are wandering by, whether you're local or whether you're a visitor, come on in. We just love to see you. And we hope that one way or another is that we can fulfill the sort of information that you want at this time of the morning. Although I do accept that this is not the time that people check in. What they do is they find us a little later, and then they sit down and they take their tea and toast, and they watch little bits and pieces of us, because who wants to watch a whole 2 hours of us? Who wants to watch a whole 2 hours of television? Who's got time to do it? But there are bits and pieces which I hope that will please you, and is an opportunity, an excuse for you to tap into us. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we've just been through we've been through the papers, the front pages of the papers. Let's just very quickly see if there is anything on the inside page. Here it's a sting. Bats buzz like wasps to trick the enemy. Right. Well, there's a study of bats, and much as they are ominous in terms of blood-sucking vampires in Transylvania, then it's as a animal, as part of nature, they are rather intriguing. Not insects. What are they? I suppose that they are part of the insect family in a funny sort of way, except that they're the big ones, and they do flap through the night, and they are a nocturnal animal. They hang up their spurs during the day, and they don't come out until it's dusk. And seeing them swoop through the sky is really very, very nice. But apparently, in a study of them, is what they do is they buzz around to put their enemies off. Now, I'm not quite sure who a bat's enemy is, and if any of you have got any ideas who enemies to bats, let us know. Because this apparently is a defensive maneuver common to most of the bat genre, and so we would very much like to find out. Let's see. We haven't actually got. Hang on. Here we go. Perhaps. It's not a great picture, but it's not a bad picture either. I'm happy to say. So it's not a great picture. We still a lot of work to do, but it's not such a bad picture that it would put you off from watching it. Let's put it that way. And we will work tirelessly to get this one right. It's all to do with the internet, and mainly because you look at those walls behind me, and they are 2 feet, 3 feet thick, because this inn was built in the 1500s, the 1600s, and in those days you didn't have central heating. You stoked up the fires, and the walls needed to keep the heat in. So we had a pretty anti-electronic building. They hadn't any idea of what we were going to face in the 21st century. And neither would we, really. And I have to say that I'm not so sure that it's all that it's cracked up to be. But it does give us a half-decent chance to do things like this. And I just hope that we can very much improve this picture. It does need just a little bit of know-how. I think we've got the part all right. I'm just not applying it properly, which is a pity, because I do have to wait. We're a very small operation, so our techie people only come on certain days. So there we are. Now, where shall we go from here? Right, we've just talked about the bats, and it's 12 minutes past 9. And what are we facing? Is what we haven't mentioned, of course, is the ongoing war, which gets worse and worse. And it's almost as if we've got bored with it now in terms of news. And I made a remark to somebody the other day that I was working in Vancouver when the Vietnam War started. And I can remember coming across our desk the first news story of the first American to lose his life in the Vietnam War. And it gave chapter and verse who he was, his brothers, his sisters, which state he was from, what he did in that state. It gave so much detail that it was the lead story, and it took up almost 2 minutes of broadcasting time, which was an awful lot. Well, then 6 months or so later is the 1,000th casualty came through, and it was ho-hum. The 1,000th American life was lost by a GI in Vietnam today. He was Sergeant or Private John Lockwood, etc., and that was it. Full stop. We didn't want to know anybody, and I suspect that to some extent, part of Vladimir Putin's strategy is that the West will get tired of this war. And when we get tired of something, we tend to throw it away. We're a consumer society, after all. You don't keep your shoes for a long time. You don't actually get them mended anymore. You just throw them away and get a new pair. You don't darn a hole in the socks. You just throw them away and get a new pair. And as a consequence, or perhaps like me occasionally, is you keep the hole there sacrosanct. Oh dear, dear. What was I on about? I was really on about, I suppose, that consumer society and how we manage to be different in so many ways to our ancestors of 200 or 300 years ago. And in the long run, what we are doing is we are trying to make this a special year. Let's see whether we can find, yes, this is what this year is going to be all about. So, the Queen's Jubilee, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and perhaps it's come just in time because she obviously is feeling the weight of the responsibility she's had for 70 years as the head of state. And, we tend to brush off the role of the head of state, but constitutionally, it is a heavy responsibility. And actually, government cannot function without a head of state. So the thought that, they get to go to all these fancy luncheons, they've got state coaches, they are provided with Rolls Royces or whatever the cars they are given. We tend to think that it's an easy life. Well, it ain't. It is she takes her responsibilities very seriously, and she's backing down. This is a momentous year for her. Next month we celebrate with a 2-day holiday and all sorts of bits and pieces of celebration. We celebrate the 70th anniversary of her reign. And we pay tribute to a wonderful head of state. Rather faster than we thought, we get a chance to see today, to get a taster of what it will be like if her successor comes to the throne. As Charles presents the Queen's speech at the opening of Parliament. And the Queen's speech is the important legislative programme that the government proposes for the next session of Parliament. And the legislation it wants to introduce. And so we hope that will be offered jointly, apparently, by Charles and William, and it will sound a new era, even while the Queen is still on the throne. And there is some speculation that perhaps what will happen is that Charles will become Prince Regent, that he will effectively carry out the legislative duties of the Queen while not actually assuming the throne. And we've had it before. The last Prince Regent, rather a colourful character, was George the. Let's see. Am I frozen? No, there we go. It was George sorry, not George. Yes, it was George. George the fourth, and he was Prince Regent while his father, George III, was declared mad, mentally incapacitated, and so he couldn't perform his functions properly. We in Lewes, which is where we're broadcasting from, by the way, this is Mirador Television from out of Lewes. It's out of Lewes, and we are happy to say that this potty little town, as it were, which has it punches above its weight as a town even now, but it has been a giant of a centre in its day, small though it is, because it has from King Alfred onwards been the administrative centre of this part of the world. And there was no Brighton as such, or Eastbourne as such, in the days, well, certainly not in Saxon days, and for that matter, not really in Norman days for much of the time. And so Lewes was a major centre, and it became a port. It cut its own throat by bringing up the clay for the bedrock of the railway. And once the railway could actually carry goods, the barges that were such well known and colourful on the River Ouse ceased to be viable in the main, and Lewes died as a port. Is that a pity? I don't know. You can see all the vestiges of being a port, the buildings with the loading bays overhanging the water, You can see it where there was a fantastic steelworks, one of the largest in the United Kingdom, the Phoenix Steelworks, which actually got involved in building steel boats, the first metal boats that came into being. It actually all carried on. It all carried on. That's what has made Lewis such an important part of life. That it was and still is. It is the county town. The way the politicians treat it, you would think that it wasn't. But nonetheless, politicians are temporal. We can get rid of them, and we can put people back in who are actually going to watch out for the traditions of this lovely old town. And this lovely old town is going to bathe in sunlight today. Well, it's scattered cloud, but the temperature is going to rise to somewhere around 17 degrees, 17 or 18. And the wind is going to be light. The chance of rain is going to be minimal. So all in all, not a bad sort of day. Not a bad sort of day at all. Right, okay, so it's now 9:25. 25 minutes past the witching hour. Generally speaking, we would say a toodle pip, and indeed we will in a minute. But first of all, I think that we will play this, which I think we need to play almost every day to remind us about war.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the seas? And how many years can some people exist before they are allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
So there we are, 9:27. Nice day out there. A day for activity, a day to get out, a day to try this before the day is through. It is now 28 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock on the 10th day of May 2022 in the town of Lewes. And I suspect that it is the same throughout the United Kingdom and perhaps even other places in the world. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with affairs from the Hart, the White Hart. We will be talking or having as co-hosts Melissa Conti from New York and Jane Watkins from Hastings. And that will bring a fresh perspective and perhaps shut me up for a little while. But we are beginning to gather our crew again so that we've got a good variety of people sitting in the wings. We also should be talking to our wine man this morning, and we'll try very hard to get everybody in at some stage. So for the moment, it is a toodle pip. We look forward to seeing you in about 10 minutes.